Greetings, viewers, and welcome to another episode of Unrepentant Geeking. I'm your host, Shaun Cronenfeld, and I am joined once again by the Dark Lord himself,
Oda, or Lord Oda, Nobunaga, whatever I guess the minions are calling me this week.
Lorne Horning / He'll Always Be Oda to me. And we are here once again to talk about Star Wars! No, we did that last time. We can't repeat ourselves. No repeating.
Okay.
Fine. I'll let it go. Don't you start singing that song. Anyways, yes, we are back again to talk more Star Wars. We spent the last show talking a great deal about The Force Awakens, touching a little bit on other stuff, but mostly focusing on the new trailer and details coming out about the upcoming Episode 7. But that was hardly the only Star Wars news making the rounds last weekend thanks to Star Wars Celebration. And so, because I am so pumped up on Star Wars right now, and Oda is, and we all are, we are going to continue the discussion, this time moving on to some of the other stuff. Obviously, the big news that we want to talk about following Celebration, aside from all the Force Awakens stuff, are details and news about Rogue One. And for those of you not aware, basically, we've known for quite some time now that in addition to a new trilogy, they are also been working on a series of standalone Star Wars films that would take place at various points in the timeline, feature various characters, perhaps even mess around with different genres and all that. We knew that, for instance, Godzilla's Garth Edwards, we knew Garth Edwards was going to be directing the first one. Basically, yeah, we've known that there's a bunch of these films in the works. The idea is that they would alternate with the trilogies, and once the next trilogy is over with, who knows where we go from there. That's years in advance. Basically, one year we'll get an episode, the next year we'll get one of these standalones. But over Celebration, we finally got some hard details, what it's about, when it's said, and also just about the standalone films in general. So it was confirmed that the film will be titled Star Wars Anthology. The anthology is even going to be in the logo. Star Wars Anthology Rogue One. Anthology is going to be the banner under which all these standalone films will go under going forward. What we got out of it is Edwards talked about it. The idea is that the film is going to be set after Episode 3 and before Episode 4, so playing around in more or less the same time as Star Wars Rebels, and we're even told there'll be nods from each to the other. What that means, no idea, but we've been told Rebels and Rogue One will nod to each other. If I had to guess, I wouldn't be shocked to see brief visible cameos, maybe even some voice cameos from the Rogue One cast on Rebels. I'd be very surprised if we saw any Rebel characters show up in Rogue One, for a number of reasons which we'll get into. A big part of this idea, a big driving idea behind Rogue One is that the Jedi are all but extinct, and this is a time when ordinary people have to step up, and it is, as has long been rumored, it is about how the rebellion stole the Death Star plans and brought new hope to the galaxy, as Disney puts it. So yeah, that is a story. Now, if you know anything about the expanded universe, how the rebellion got the Star Wars plans have actually been told a number of times in a number of contradictory ways, including going all the way back to Dark Forces, the Star Wars FPS game that remains a fan favorite to this day with the older set. And so there have been a lot of different versions of this story. It seems like that was one of the go-to plots for any time somebody was doing something before Episode 4. But this will be the definitive story of it. We're being told this is going to be less than Ocean's 11, more like a SEAL Team 6, more like this is going to be a war story. The director, Garth Edwards, has been very clear. There's wars in the title for a reason. This is going to be a movie of grays, not so much of black and whites. We're going to see bad guys do good things and good guys do bad things. But we're also going to see how we lead, according to Edwards, we're going to see how we lead up to the moment in New Hope where things become more black and white. How we lead up to that moment where things become crystallized and where we really see that this is a battle between really good and evil. But it's still, we're going to focus from a perspective of boots on the ground soldiers doing their thing. So it's basically a war movie, and according to Edwards, it doesn't sound like there won't probably be any lightsabers or Jedi, or at least certainly not There will be no Jedi, not much focus on that. This is the ordinary people fighting for the future of the galaxy. So there's more details we can get into, but first, what is your initial reaction to all this, Oda?
Putting aside the trailer for Rogue One, which we'll get to, I'm down for it. I'm actually down for it. Although, I mean, we know they get the plans, so we kind of already know that they're going to succeed. That we're going to go into the movie knowing how it's going to end. And I know there's other movies, of course, movies that take place in World War II, for example, and the Titanic and all that kind of thing. It's more about the characters, If the characters are good and the situations are, intense and threatening, et cetera, et cetera, we will care about the characters, not the destination. It's, as they say, it's about the journey, not the destination. So on that aspect, I'm totally down with it, and I am absolutely down with there being additional movies outside of this. And while I know it's much along the same lines as I just covered, I would love to see them dip into the KOTOR setting for some movies, but perhaps that's wishful thinking. But yeah, I'm totally down, and I notice how he didn't say the Force won't play a role. He just said the Jedi won't play a role because they're extinct. So that kind of leads me to go, oh, maybe in this movie there'll be like a Sith figure or an evil Force user whom they essentially have to avoid or outwit because they can't just go like pew 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 and kill him.
Yeah, because that would be one of the best ways to really stack the odds against our heroes. Is I agree. Give them somebody that's more than just human. Certainly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's and someone that in essence they really kind of can't defeat until the climactic moment where somebody does something amazing and then maybe sacrifices themselves for the greater good, and at that point we see the Sith, of course, as the evil, as the absolute evil, and of course the rebels who make this great sacrifice in the end. They're no doubt going to be the good guys. So, but I do actually find it rather interesting that they went that route, that after this movie, it will become clear why the evil guys are the evil guys and the good guys are the good guys, even though you already have blue lightsaber, red lightsaber. Like, you're pretty... if you have a red lightsaber, you're a bad guy, and if you have a blue lightsaber, you're a good guy. But
it's more than just color coded. It's what drives them, is what I mean. You know what I mean? I'm excited for this because, first of all, we're dealing with we're going to be dealing with clearly a cast of probably either all or mostly unknown characters, especially since, again, the old expanded universe is out the door. So we're probably going to be dealing... I mean, if I had to guess, I doubt we get more than... I'm sure in supporting roles we'll get a couple of established characters. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see, although maybe I don't know, they might have trouble because of cast. I wouldn't be shocked to see a Bail Organa or Mon Mothma, somebody like that, or an Akbar, somebody who's established and who they could, at least in theory, bring in. But I'm assuming most of our leads will be new characters, and that opens a lot of doors. Looking back at, speaking of the expanded universe, probably my favorite piece of the expanded universe, certainly one of them, was the old X-Wing novels. Did you ever read those, Oda?
I actually made a strong point of playing through the video games, like Rogue Squadron and stuff like that. Those are some really awesome games.
Well, the X-Wing novels mostly took place after the original trilogy, and they focused, they had established character. The lead was usually Wedge, and then it was surrounded with either characters who had very small roles, the guys who, they had a name, but they certainly didn't have anything like a personality, the filler characters, in other words, in the main movies, and then new characters. And part of a hallmark of the X-Wing saga series was that nobody was really safe. We were pretty confident Wedge wasn't going to die because he was a beloved supporting character, but aside from that, these were all cast of unknown, and indeed, at various points, characters would just get suddenly killed, or would die tragically, or would die pointlessly, or die needlessly. And I mean, it didn't, it wasn't grim. It wasn't, constant it wasn't, oh god, war is hell. Like, it wasn't Warhammer. Okay, it was never like that. But there was this was a series of books that, and again, there were Jedi eventually, there were other things, but this was more like the ground troop level. This was, I mean, sort of. The Rogue Squadron was made up of the elite, the best pilots in the Rebellion / New Republic. So they weren't exactly ordinary troops, but it was certainly a more human perspective than sometimes you might get from, say, a Jedi. And I'm hoping that we will see at least some inspiration taken from those books. But I mean, what I find interesting those books were less straightforward space opera and more just kind of outright, I mean, classic military science fiction. They were definitely more military stories than they were just straight out space opera at times. And we seem to be getting a similar vibe. Certainly that's the way that Edwards seems to be describing Rogue One. And do you think that's going to be an issue? Do you think that's going to be a problem? I mean, I think even if he goes somewhat darker than the main movies, it's only so dark he's going to go. I would be shocked. I don't think we're going to get an R-rated Star Wars movie, okay? I don't see that happening. But still, if the idea is to leave behind the space opera and go more World of Greys, as he said, more war movie where, where everybody's hands are a bit red with blood and all that. I mean, do you think that's a potential problem, or does that excite you?
I would absolutely love a rated R Star Wars film, and as I think it might be a little late, obviously, for this movie to go R, because I'm sure there's already a script and storyboards and stuff.
Well, even if we ever did get an R-rated Star Wars movie, it's not going to be the first anthology film.
It will be the first anthology film, and I really do think that as much as Star Wars is this beloved of all ages, all maturity levels, space opera that is delightful for children and for older adults because everyone can get something from it, I as well would like to see them go the Deadpool route and take something that at first glance you kind of might think is for a younger person, but then go, oh, by the way, it's rated R. The one thing, of course, that I do also kind of think of is that this Star Wars anthology, like any Star Wars film, whether it be, rated R, which I would love, or, Rogue One, etc., these will be phenomenal career-changing movies for new actors. Like for actors that don't have a name or barely have a name, if you're in a Star Wars movie, you are guaranteed 100% exposure to the market. And if you put in a good performance, that will make your career, because you can be guaranteed anything with the Star Wars name on it is going to sell. Because the prequel sold, and, well, we know about the prequels, so... So I can only hope that, in of essence, that responsibility is taken seriously. Whether they start things off, in the serious tone, or whether they take things sort of into an action comedy Iron Man level, which is likely what we'll see, since that's kind of safe in Hollywood right now. Is that sort of Iron Man?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he talks about how this is going to be more. I mean, he said multiple times in different interviews this is going to be more gray than the solid black and white of A New Hope. So I mean, I assume we're going to go at least a bit darker, maybe. I mean, admittedly, darkness is relative, since we are talking about a series who, in its entry, in its first entry, blew up a whole fucking planet.
Yeah, exactly.
and who, in its last, chronological release, strongly implied, if not strongly implied, the main character, who was once, as a child being put on children books to be sold to 5-year-olds, then proceeded to, as an adult, mercilessly slaughter children. So, I mean, it's not like Star Wars is unacquainted with darkness, but I think, that's kind of, but at the same time, that's a kind of easy darkness to deal with, because it's like, well, they're the bad guys, and we could just say to the bad guys. I assume what he's talking about is getting into a more morally ambiguous darkness, the kind of one which leaves you unsettled, the kind of one where it's like, well, we're all, I mean, it's easy to go, well, I'd never be Darth Vader, but you see what I'm saying, and to go more into the idea of anybody can fall. Anybody can touch the dark side, basically. So I don't know if I'm making it. I mean, I assume I don't want to say mature or adult because I don't like the way those terms get thrown around too much. And like I said, this is not going to be an R-rated film, and I don't think it should be. I'm not. In theory, maybe an R-rated Star Wars would be okay. I mean, Star Wars isn't just for kids, but there is. I don't. It's a tricky issue, certainly. I mean, it gets into a similar territory of like, is it okay to do mature-rated comics featuring characters that are normally aimed at all ages? Yes, in theory, but you have to play it smart and you have to be careful because you don't want the kids reading that unless the parents are okay with that. I mean, it gets tricky, but I do think maybe we're going to see a little more dirt and grime and a little bit more. I mean, they're describing it as a war movie, basically. And a war movie is very different from a space opera, I think it's safe to say.
At a war movie, at base, you need a PG-13 rating, at an absolute base, because, a PG rating, like, you can't even really show people getting shot. And maybe the whole thing with it being blasters, might soften the blow for some kiddies, but
and alien blood and robots. I mean, yeah, you'd be amazed what you can get away with when like the blood is purple instead of red.
Yeah, exactly. And if they're trying to make a war movie, the blood's got to be red. The people have to give death speeches, and there has to be emotion. And
I mean, I think of something like Saving Private Ryan, which is certainly a war movie. And certainly there is a big battle at the beginning, and it's one of the most visceral moments, I think, in film history. And certainly there's a big battle at the end, though nowhere near that. But in between, the rest of the movie is really a character piece, largely. And it's about these characters going about, and it's about asking interesting moral questions. Like, I mean, this is a PR stunt we're getting sent on, and does it really make sense to send out a group of us to go rescue one guy who may already be dead just for a PR stunt? But you see what, I mean, I think that is a rated. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. I wouldn't be surprised if it's PG-13, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's only PG. I think people put a little too much stock on ratings. They're kind of arbitrary in what you can and can't get away. I mean, you can get away with all kinds of violence as long as you don't have cursing or nudity.
Yeah, the North American rating system is just absolute trash and stifles creativity. Yes. I mean, I could rally for age upon age about how much I hate and why I hate the rating system of North America, but getting beyond all of that, the rating and the content and all of that is I guess in the end purely secondary to how well they tell the story and whether they make us care. And because if they don't make us care and they just slap the Star Wars name on it, because the anthology, they're clearly trying to market it as separate from the main canon and the main everything, right? So if the anthology movies blow, then people are going to stop going to see the anthology movies, but keep going to the trilogy movies.
Maybe. But it's going to be interesting to see how if people do or don't differentiate quite like that. I mean, this is new territory for this franchise, and some ways new territory, period. I can't think of too many other examples where you have a series that's starting an ongoing trilogy but then telling separate standalone stories in between editions of that trilogy. So it's new ground. And one last touching on the rating. I mean, you've seen Clone Wars, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that show got dark, very dark. And again, that show was never rated PG-13 or equivalent. But I think at its best, it certainly got across the horrors of war, the darkness, the murkiness, the way it can change you, the way it can eat away at you, the way it can change a good person into somebody who doesn't even recognize themselves anymore. And it was able to tackle, amidst all the lightsaber duels and laser fire and things blowing up, it was able to tackle real, complicated issues and treat them with respect and intelligence. So I guess my ultimate feeling is, yeah, I think Star Wars can step away from being pure space opera. I think Star Wars is flexible enough. You could tell all kinds of stories, all kinds of genres. You could, if you wanted to do a straight Star Wars romance film, you could do that. If you wanted to do an outright Star Wars comedy film, you could do that, I think. I feel like the setting is more than flexible enough to allow you to tell all kinds of stories. Let's talk about Battlefront. What'd you think of the trailer, Oda? Are you excited for it? Do you not care? What's your thoughts?
If it wasn't DICE, I would be more excited because I don't know. DICE is third part of Battlefield, and I have Battlefield 4 on my hard drive. I play it. I love my shotguns in Battlefield 4. But the trailers, and I knew as soon as I saw the uses an in-game engine for that footage, I knew that it was deceitful, because the typical is in-game footage, in-game footage, in-engine footage,
Right.
but
I mean,
this
it's
wasn't.
it's fine to be cinematic, but yeah, if at some point you don't actually show me straight on actual gameplay, I'm going to be suspicious. Just because, and to be fair, this is hardly limited to EA or DICE. This is a fairly common practice across the video game industry. So I don't want to, I don't want to necessarily just single them out. I mean, it's a common trick. Everybody, a lot of people tend to do it. They because when you could use the engine, but because you're doing something very specific, you can sweeten it. And I mean, the trailer looked gorgeous and amazing. It was a remarkably looking trailer, and I will be shocked if the actual final game looks that good.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's just like looking at an E3 trailer and going,
Yeah.
"Oh man, the game's gonna look just like that." And well, aliens.
What you want to try and take away from a trailer like that is more like what in-game concepts is it representing? And it seems to be representing the idea, and this was enforced by afterwards, various interviews with the developers. The idea is that, like, you'll be able to get a lot of power-ups. Like, we saw a character, have a rocket pack and shoot up into the sky and use a rocket launcher. Or we saw a character use a portable version of those shields that the Gungans used. The kind of energy shields that we saw in episode 1. And actually, it would make a lot of sense that people would be using these things. Why aren't they using them? And then you realize, oh, that's because we don't really see a lot of sustained ground battles in Star Wars where that would be particularly applicable. And also because they hadn't been invented yet. So let's just move on. But seriously, though, I mean, and we saw Vader, we saw Boba Fett, we saw some TIE fighters, presence of ships, but we had to confirm there won't be, the big thing we got, there won't be space battles in this. And, like, people may remember the canceled Battlefield 3 from back in 2008, and then the big selling point for that was going to be seamless transition from space to ground and all that. No, there won't be any of that in this new game. It sounds like, I mean, I guess I could maybe see a level set in space where you're flying between two ships, but maybe not even that. It sounded like there won't be any kind of basically full-on space action. There will be vehicles, but you're going to be stuck on a planet. Does that bother you, Oda, or do you think that doesn't really matter?
No. See, to me, and I mean, this might just be me, but I've never seen space battles as intrinsically important to a Star Wars game. Now, I know that sounds very, very silly at first glance, but considering how intrinsic the space battles are for for the actual movies, whether it be the prequels or or for the real movies, let's just be honest. Don't get cocky, kid, and all that stuff. When it comes to Star Wars video games, no, space battles are meh. In video games. Let's be honest. Space battles.
No. No, I can't go along with that. Some of the best Star Wars games ever were things like, I don't know, X-Wing, TIE Fighter. I mean, I will not go along with what you are saying in that regard, sir, but I certainly wouldn't go so far to say that you have to have space battles in order for a Star Wars game to be good. How about we say that? You can have a good Star Wars game without space battles. I'll allow that. I will go no further than that, I'm afraid. That far, no further. No further. So are you excited for Battlefront?
I am. I am actually very excited, even if they hadn't made the statement of that they will be ignoring the prequels. Um, because that statement filled me with joy. Even though it did mean that I would not get to shoot Gungans, because let's be honest, I think we all would love to shoot some Gungans. Um, but no, no Gungan shooting. But that still brings me joy because we won't have to deal with Jar Jar and Gungans and Annie and pod racing and all that kind of stuff. It'll effectively just be Battlefront 3, the Battlefront 3 that we kind of all were anticipating and wanting, minus the space battles, of course. And I think that'll be good. But I always worry when they put, I guess we'll call it melee, into FPSs.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's rarely done well, and really the best it's ever been done for me is Team Fortress 2. And even then, all it takes is just a little bit of lag, and nope. So I am cautiously optimistic about the melee part, because obviously lightsabers, because it was in the trailer. But beyond that, oh no, can't wait, can't wait. I had a lot of fun.
I mean, so you're dubious about the actual real, how true to the final game that trailer will be, but it did still manage to make you excited, basically.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait. And whether it'll be just me shooting Wookiees and other dudes, or strafing people in a TIE fighter, I think it'll be hilarious.
Finally, I'll just talk briefly about Rebels. I know you're not caught up on the season, you haven't seen the new trailer, so I won't get into specifics. I'll just say that it looks like, as I'd hoped, Rebels is about to turn a corner. The end of the first season seemed to set the stage for things to get a bit darker, a bit more intense, a bit more, these are the dark times for a reason. And that trailer that they released certainly seems to be living up to that promise. And I am so ready for Rebels season 2, I can't even begin. I just can't even. I can't. I mean, season 1 was good, but season 2 looks like it's gonna kick it up a notch, or 2 or 3. So,
Yeah,
yep.
I had actually heard, and this might not be correct, but that Darth Vader was showing up.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. And voiced by James Earl Jones, no less.
Yeah, I had heard that. That was kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy, but on the other hand, what else is he doing these days? There's only so many times there's only so many times they need him to say this is CNN. Does he even still do that? I wonder. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Point is, I'm excited for the next season of Rebels. Overall, I came away from Celebration deliriously happy and ready for all the Star Wars I can get my hands on. I'm ready for the comics, which I'm enjoying. More of the comics. We're getting a Lando series. I am so ready for the novels. Like, coming out next week is a novel starring Vader and Palpatine set after Episode 3, before Episode 4, with them going on Palpatine's actually left the planet to go on something vital, but then they get sucker punched and he and Vader crash land on a planet, and now they got to work together to escape, and they're the stars. I mean, just that sounds, yes, mana. That sounds like my, I'm not, I mean, this may sound weird because I am light side Paragon for life, but that just sounds like such a great concept for a story. And it sounds like the kind of concept you could have a lot of fun with. But really what I want those Road to the Force Awakens novels. I want to know what happens. I want to know if Han and Leia are married and have kids. Make it happen.
Even with his change of heart, at the end there,
Shut your mouth.
I really never saw.
Shut your mouth.
Really never saw Han as a settle down type.
Not listening. All right, I'm listening.
I just never saw them as the getting married type, really. It's
They could if they want to.
I'm sure, but I don't think he'd want to. He's Han.
He's matured. And come on, that scoundrel thing was all a lot of an act anyways. After everything he's done, what? You think he's just going to go back to, spice? Smuggling? I mean, yeah, right. He helped kill one of the big crime lords in the galaxy. He helped blow up 2 Death Stars. Or at least contributed to it. I mean, Nah. He's going respectable. He's a general at the end. He's a general in the rebellion. So, General Solo. Damn right. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode. I think the takeaway is that Oda and I are both as Star Wars fans, are deliriously happy and are ready for all the flood of stuff that's coming. Feed me more. Agreed?
See more.
I'm ready for the flood. I'm ready. I'm standing with my arms out, looking up at the sky, going, "Come on!" And I'm ready for the flood to wash over me and to drown in a good way in Star Wars. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode. I want to thank all of you for joining me, and I also want to thank you for once again being on the show, Oda.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
We were certainly, I guarantee it's not the last we've seen of your dark ways.
Definitely not.
I mean, there's a lot more Star Wars coming. And yeah, so until next time, for Channel Awesome and Unrepentant Geeking, I'm Shaun Cronenfeld, hoping the Force is with you always.